Almost everybody does, even if they're really
Yeah.
high-powered CEOs. It's shocking.
Yeah.
Like they might be really good at keeping their word to their client, but their word to themselves,
Self.
that's the biggest thing that messes with people is self-trust. Like, so you'll say, oh, I'm going to work out 5 times a week, whatever. And then you wake up and you don't feel like it and you're a little tired and you got a lot of emails coming at you and you justify why you're not going to honor your word. And now you're going to just get designed by life versus designing life.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Kevin, and today we are joined by Josselyne Herman-Saccio. She's been a coach for over 35 years and the founder of the Art of Being Unmessablewith. Welcome to the podcast, Josselyne.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, 35 years. I think this might be the most experienced coach on this podcast
The
so far.
oldest coach, is that what you're trying to say?
Super old. No,
like ancient.
You know, as I think about it, that's just as old. I'm a little bit older, but that's just as old as me. And so I kind of want to get into the origin story, the lore, what made you become a coach and eventually turn it into your own business.
Well, I began doing transformative programs when I was 11. Obviously I'm not like Googling transformation at 11, but my mother and father separated and my mother did a transformative workshop. And then a year later, my dad did the same workshop and they got back together. And they're 94 and 92 now and have been together 65 years. So they put me in the young person's version of that. So I've grown up in the realm of coaching and transformation my entire life for the most part. I mean, I'm 58 now. So, if you do the math, it's 47 years. Then in my late teens, early 20s, I started doing courses again in that same ecosystem and fell in love with transformation. So I just started getting trained as a coach way back then when I was 19 years old.
Oh, wow. That's so crazy.
And I've been doing it ever since. So it's kind of like my blood.
Yeah. Can you tell me how you actually transitioned into being a coach? Like, I know that you started at 19 years old, but I'd love to hear the story.
Well, I started leading seminars and courses for a company called Landmark at that point. And at the same time, I had this lifelong dream that I had put to the side to be a singer. I really didn't think it was possible because when I was 5 years old, my father and I were sitting in the car. I mean, it's 5 years old. I'm just sitting with him. And I noticed he used to paint a lot, like when he was home, and he had stopped painting. So I asked him innocently, like, why'd you stop painting? And he just kind of flippantly said, well, you can't do your art as your career. And I latched on to that like it was the truth. Like God had come down and said, you can't do your art as your career. So in that moment at 5, I decided I wasn't going to pursue a singing career and I would be in business, or be a lawyer or something, where you could do it as your career. So flash forward, at 18, I'm running a company and making more money than most of my friends' parents. I graduated high school at 16. And in another transformative workshop, because I'm now engaged with getting trained, and I have this insight, like maybe that's not the truth. Maybe you can't do your art as your career is something I made up at 5 and then believed and looked at life through that lens for 15 years. So I kind of disappeared that belief as the truth. And within 3 months, I got a record deal. And that record ended up going number 1 on the charts. We knocked Whitney Houston out of the number 1 spot after she had been on the number 1 spot for 14 weeks with I Will Always Love You. We were the next number 1 song. So it was like so quickly I was able to fulfill on a lifelong dream that I thought was completely impossible 3 months earlier. So that's when I said, okay, that's it. I want to train people to be able to live their dreams now, not someday, and be able to fulfill on anything that they want. So that was the turning point where I really got committed and have given my life to making a difference for people and developing them in what I call the art of being unmessable with, which doesn't mean being tough. It means being able to fulfill your dreams and not be thrown by circumstances or people saying no or anything really.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Well, that's a crazy story. Congratulations, by the way, for that. I know
you were probably not even born yet, but yes. It was 1993 we went number 1. So
Hey, I was like 5. I was 5.
Okay, there you go.
So, yeah. And I'm so curious, since you turned coaching into a business, how did you kind of decide who you wanted to help? Because I can see a lot of people benefiting from coaching, but is there a specific type of person or like kind of.
Well, I've worked with all kinds of people for the last, 35 or 40 years now. 40 years, I can't even believe it. I've led programs for more than 200,000 people, and they're all different walks of life. And especially when I was leading the forum and the advanced course for Landmark, I mean, whoever was in front of me, I would transform. That was it. But when I left Landmark a few years ago and started the Art of Being Unmessable with, I wasn't really focused on any type of person, but organically what has arisen from the programs that I do is it's a lot of creative people, obviously, because that's my background, but also entrepreneurs, founders, and executives. That seems to be who gravitates towards me and who ends up working with me.
And so my background is pharmacy, right? And I always think about symptoms and stuff where people come up to my counter, they ask me, oh, I have a stuffy nose and stuff. For the coaching, the people that are coming up to you, do you notice certain symptoms or patterns of problems that people are asking about?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think with entrepreneurs, a lot of times they feel like they're successful, they produce the results, but they're not fulfilled or satisfied, even though they have the metrics and they have the trapping. Another thing that I find messes with people quite often is what people call imposter syndrome, but really, having self-doubt and not really having self-confidence, even though you have the resume, but you don't have the reality of yourself as somebody who's, worth listening to or worth investing in or whatever the worth thing is. And, time and money messes with people, obviously. But the biggest thing that I've found that messes with people, and really what I design my work around, is their relationship to their word. Because what I've discovered is no matter how high performance you are, the areas that mess with you, that throw you off track, have to do with a weak relationship to your word. Where people are killing it is usually where they have a word in the matter. They say something and they do it. They say something and it happens. And where they're weak is where they say something and then reasons get in the way, or circumstances or justifications or explanations or considerations end up being bigger or more strong than their words. So I work a lot on the muscle of word. In fact, in 2026, I'll be launching a very brand new course I've never done before with people called the Word Boot Camp. And it's all about building muscle with your words so that you can say X and have X happen, no matter in what area of your life. So I'm very excited about that.
Ooh, okay. We'll talk about your different offers in a bit. But speaking about business, I'm so curious, in your current business right now, how do people typically find out about you? What kind of marketing are you doing right now?
I mostly I'm not doing any ads or anything like that. So it's mostly referrals, so word of mouth and social media. And then there's people that find their way to my list, either through my podcast or being on podcasts, but mostly it's social media and word of mouth.
What social media platforms are you on right now?
Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok. I think that's pretty much it. And then I have my own podcast called Be Unmessable With, and that's like 150th episode is airing right now. So that's, a way to really highlight other people's messages, but 2 episodes a week out there. So we have YouTube, the YouTube channel is doing all of that. We're pretty much everywhere but X.
I see. Are you noticing any platforms that are driving more like attention than others for you?
Not really. I'm not tracking that stuff. I have a team that tracks that stuff. And, I just keep creating content. I want to keep focused on my zone of genius. And I love creating content. I love creating courses. I love creating, evergreen courses and in-person courses. I have a year-long mastery program that I work with entrepreneurs and founders. So I focus a lot on that and my group coaching programs. I'm mostly focused on the design and delivery, and I let other people deal with the marketing.
Yeah. You mentioned that you love creating content, and I'm assuming that you've created content for a little while now. What kind of content have you kind of gravitated to over the years?
You mean video content, or what do you mean?
Type
what kind
of
content?
like type of content. Like people have different formats, right? Or they talk about certain topics or certain things. Some people like listicles, some people like other different formats. So I'm just kind of curious if there's.
I create my solo episode of my podcast every week, which we use as reels. I create, short content. I create things that'll make a difference for people in their ability to live their dreams and not be thrown thrown by the circumstances, no matter what life throws at them, to be able to be unmessable with. So all my content is designed around that and around impacting people's ability to fulfill on what they want.
I see. So it sounds like your core content is like mostly the podcast then, and everything else like streams out from that.
I mean, sort of. I'm trying to design it that way to economize my time, but I have a lot of content. I mean, it's not just the podcast. I do international speaking. So I have TEDx talk. I have a lot of stuff, and there's no shortage of material. I do free workshops. I do, a holiday workshop every year to teach people how to be unmessable with during the holidays, because that's a time of year where people get very messable with. They go to their families and, they become like a 6-year-old again and react to everything rather than staying in that space of creations, interviews and written articles and press. And so, there's just a lot of content. I don't know how else to say it.
Okay, so you're creating lots of content out there and people are finding out about you. They choose to work with you. And so I'm so kind of curious, what are the different coaching modalities that you're using? You mentioned that you have different offers and all that. I would love to kind of hear what your offers look like.
I have free things on my website. It's, the freebies page of beunmessablewith.com. Tons of free things from, burnout workshops to money workshop to, I do a money workshop that's free with one of my dearest friends, Robin Quivers from the Howard Stern Show, and our money coach, Tyrone Jackson. So we have 3 of us leading that work. That's free. And I have things on how to instantly reset from reaction to creation. I have things to not be stopped by not be motivated. I have an imposter syndrome thing. Those are all free. And then I have paid things. So I have some things that are more like quick, little 5-day things that you can, like a dream source discovery process where you can kind of identify what your vision is as distinct from your goals. And then I have a calendar workshop, which is one of my most popular offerings. It's like $20, but it transforms your relationship to your calendar. So burnout and overwhelm, that really deals with that. I have a group coaching program, which is 3 months long. I do that twice a year. And then I have foundational evergreen program, which is like a 5-week pre-recorded do-it-your-own pace program. That program's like a good entryway into my world. And it's, you can do it at your own pace and you have lifetime access to all the materials. So that's a pretty good sampling. And then I have year-long mastery program with entrepreneurs. They're very small. I try and keep them under 20 people, and they're about minimally doubling your revenue while increasing your element of freedom in your life. So it's about mastering performance, creation, which is like shifting from reaction to creation, and freedom. Because one of the biggest problems I see with entrepreneurs is they build this empire, let's say, or even a small empire, a company, and they become a prisoner of what they created. And then they end up burnt out and overwhelmed because they're trying to do it all instead of have it all. So I'm a real master at that. Mastery is, they say it takes 10,000 hours to even begin to talk about mastery. Well, I've got like hundreds of thousands of hours. And this is something that I'm masterful at. So I have designed programs to empower people to be able to do the same thing that I've done, 10x my revenue and reduce my work week to 15 hours a week. I mean, that's what people want. So I was like, all right, I'm going to teach them how to do it.
Yeah. Speaking about mastery, how do you have so many different projects and all that. I'm so curious, how do you manage it all? Like, especially with all the client capacity and all the different projects.
Well, I design it in my calendar. That's why the calendar workshop is so important. I use my calendar as my canvas. So I create, from 3 years out, 2 years out, 1 year out, and then backwards plan it. And then I design it where it's like, okay, if I don't want to work on Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays, I'm going to block those days out. And Wednesdays from this time to this time, I'm not working. Then I have a certain amount of time slots left, and I won't take on more clients than I can fit into what I've designed, because I'm committed that people have a life they design, not just one that fills up by default. And life will fill up by default because people, I get requests all the time. I don't say yes to everything. I try and say yes to everything that speaks to me, but at the same time, I look in reality at what is my time and am I willing to do what I need to do to fulfill on my word? Because once I give my word, that's pretty much law in the universe, which is why I want to train people in that. Because if you can say something and have it happen, if you can say double my revenue next quarter and have it happen, that's like power. Or if you can say intimacy in my marriage and have it happen, that's like being a magic person. I'm committed committed that people have their word like their wand and be able to create, magic results with it. And mostly people's relationship to their word is weak.
I actually noticed that too about like even myself and stuff like that. That's something I've always kind of struggled with, right? Like my whole entire life and all that. And I can imagine other people struggling with it too.
Almost everybody does, even if they're really high-powered CEOs. It's shocking.
Yeah.
Like they might be really good at keeping their word to their client, but their word to themselves,
Self.
that's the biggest thing that messes with people is self-trust. Like, so you'll say, oh, I'm going to work out 5 times a week, whatever. And then you wake up and you don't feel like it and you're a little tired and you got a lot of emails coming at you and you justify why you're not going to honor your word. And now you're going to just get designed by life versus designing life.
And I do feel like it diminishes your own trust to like deliver, like if you're in the client like delivery world, it diminishes your own trust on what you can deliver to people and all that and those promises. So
it does,
really,
yeah. And it's promising is a huge access, Kevin. Like if you want to develop muscle with your word, I've written 2 books about promises because I find that making a promise, first of all, it's so powerful and profound because you're creating a future that is not going to happen anyway. So if I promise to have lunch with you on Friday at 12, whatever was happening Friday at 12 is no longer happening. I just put something in the future that wasn't there. That's magic, and abracadabra in ancient Aramaic means literally I create as I speak. So I use promises as a mechanism and as like a fun way to have people develop muscle with saying X and having it happen. I have like a it's cute, but it's profound. It's 5-day promise game. It's free again on my website where every day you get a new promise and you kind of like, create that in your life. And it's not just the doing of it, it's the space that it creates. I promise to make 5 people smile today. The space of joy all of a sudden starts to show up in your life, but you did that, you created that. So it's a very powerful tool, promising.
Yeah, you mentioned something really interesting, like how you can just say something and it's almost like magic where it kind of manifests, I guess. Like when you said double your revenue, like that really stuck out to me. And so one of the things that a lot of, I guess, coaches listening to this, what I've noticed is that they struggle with things like pricing and pricing strategy. Maybe part of it is a bit self-conscious about like what they think they can charge and all that. If you're open to it, you don't have to give any hard numbers, but I would love your
give you numbers.
thoughts.
I'm not secret about anything.
Oh yeah, okay.
I mean, by the time this airs, my prices might change, but this is, but I have no.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is like, I would love your thoughts about how you structure your pricing and where you go about it. Because I know some people do project-based, some people do value-based, some people do retainers. Like, I'm so curious on how you think about it.
Well, I mean, my programs are whatever price they are. So that's a tuition and that's what it is, My one-on-one coaching, which I do very little of, and I only take on a handful of people, is a retainer base. It's retainer and it's based on a certain amount of calls per month and then chat access, like WhatsApp chat access for, little touch points here and there that are needed. And then I guess that's really it. Everything else is really program or product based. So, and I make up my price. I mean, I just make it up. It's like, no, there's no right way to price your stuff. It's like, okay, well, I mean, when I first started, my one-on-one was lower than it is now, significantly. And one of my clients said to me, "You're not charging enough." I was like, "Really?" And he goes, "No, you got to at least double your price." And I was like, "I don't know, double my price." And so like, I was a little bit hesitant because I had a little bit of like, well, I wouldn't pay that, but I inched it up 50% and nobody was not signing up for it. So I was like, okay, well, good. So he's sort of been a lot of my barometer of when to raise my prices. But I also have a coach. Any good coach should have a coach. And if they don't have a coach, I would not hire that coach because you can't see what you can't see. And coaching is really a game of mastery. So if you're not committed to developing yourself and you think you've gotten somewhere, then you're not a good coach. So I have a coach who I bounce things off of. And I say, what do you think about this pricing? Da, 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 da. And she'll say, yeah, I think you could do more, or I think maybe a little less on this one. And, she's a good guiding star person.
I love that. So it sounds like you base your prices off intuition, but you work with a coach to kind of hone that intuition over time through feedback with your coach and all that. I'm so curious.
Also, what do I want to make? What am I willing to spend an hour doing? For how much? That's a lot of it. It's like, because I'm not just willing to just do anything for, $10. I'm not going to do that, so it just depends on what stage you're at in your life. What game are you playing? I'm not playing the game of make lots of money. And I'm playing the game of impact and quality of life, and revenue's a natural fallout of that.
Yeah. Let's talk about the impact stuff. Something I am very interested in because, like I said, you've been in in the game for about 35 years. And so I guess where do you want this coaching business to take you in the next few years, the next chapter of your life, I guess? Like, do you have any secret dreams that no one knows about, big ambitions, desires to scale even more? I'm kind of curious on your end.
I want to scale in my evergreen products. I do want to do that. I want to get those out there to more people because they're really affordable as opposed to maybe group coaching or the mastery program might not be as accessible to certain people. I want to amp up the knowledge of that, so to speak, that people know about those programs and have more and more people doing that. And then the place where I see I can scale is my group coaching program. I typically have about 30 people in that group, but I think I could scale that to, I've led for hundreds of people online, so I could not easily, but I could easily lead to 100 people online. So I want to scale that because it's not extra time for me. It's the same amount of time and it'll have the same amount of impact on people. So I think that's really where I see myself scaling. My mastery program is super small. So that's really by invitation or application only. So that's always going to stay small because that involves a one-on-one component. It's a combination, it's a hybrid of group coaching calls, one-on-one calls, and in-person workshop 3 times a year. So I don't want to go crazy with that and have 100 people in that. It's just, I'd have to have 100 one-on-one calls every month. I'm not doing that. So.
Yeah, it's also, I think you would probably go insane with that.
Yeah, okay. Exactly.
So it sounds like the goal is to scale your evergreen products and then scale your group coaching program. As you're thinking about scaling, are you noticing any like challenges or bottlenecks that you're noticing in this season of your business right now as you're thinking about scaling?
The biggest challenge I've had is building my list, which, because I have a really strong base of my list. My list is, 50 to 60% open rate, 8% click rate. So those of you that know about that stuff, that's like apparently very high. It's driving people to my list that I haven't cracked the code on. I'm still experimenting with, different social media free offers, downloads, and things like that. I haven't tried advertising yet, which I might do maybe next year. And I do also want to write a book next year. So I'm backwards planning that to make sure that I have the space to do that. I've been working on the idea of a book and now I'm kind of going to hone it to, put the whole Unmessable With methodology into a book so that's another way that I can scale to get out there and make sure that people have these tools because I really think people deserve to have the life of their dreams. So many people walk around with reasons why they can't have what they really want or justifications or considerations, and that's optional. You don't have to be stuck in a reason or be married to a reason. You can actually fulfill what you want. You just might have to disappear a blind spot like I did with you can't do your art as your career. I had to disappear that as a truth to be able to fulfill on what I wanted. But once I disappeared it, I fulfilled on what I wanted really fast. I believe people have the right and that they deserve to have that kind of life. So I want to get those tools to as many people as possible.
I'm excited for this next phase of your life. I can just see the momentum. As you're talking about your career, the exciting part is I can see each phase of your career and how it's the exponential curve and all that. It's really
I'm excited. In the last 3 years, what I've been able to build has been so fulfilling and the people I've been able to work with are so amazing. And I'm just so blessed that but it's not by accident. It's by design. Yeah. It's by using the very methodology that I teach people. So it's like I walk my talk, but the question is just what am I creating next, right? So that's really where I am right now. This is the time of year where I sit down with my husband and we look at the end of next year. What do we want to fulfill on and start designing a backwards plan? Because if you plan it from here forward, Kevin, you're limited by your current circumstances and resources and thinking. If you plan it from the future backward, you're free to really create anything and then look at, okay, what's missing in terms of my team or in terms of, structures or systems to be able to fulfill on what I want to fill on in a year and a half from now.
I've noticed that. I know Alex Hormozi talks about it. I forgot what they call it, Solomon's, it's basically your future self advising your younger self. And I love that. And that's actually a great reminder because I tend to when I think about my businesses and stuff, I sometimes think about the present me planning forward versus the opposite way or reverse engineering actually. So,
the Merlin principle is the basis of what I use in terms of the backwards planning. And I don't know if you know the story about Merlin the magician.
I'll do
the Cliff Note version. Yeah. He was from the King Arthur's time and he's known as the magician from all those movies that you've ever seen about King Arthur. Merlin is the magician. And the story goes that he has a cabin in the woods and King Arthur is a young boy and he stumbles upon his cabin and there's 2 places set for lunch. And he comes in and Merlin said, will you join me for lunch? And he goes, well, it looks like you already have somebody joining you. He goes, no, I set that for you. I live my life life forward from the future. So he already knows the future and then he just fulfills on it. And that's kind of what I do with my clients is I have them create the future that they've always wanted and then fulfill on it. We design a plan so that they can fulfill on it. And then if they're not executing that plan, what gets uncovered is what messes with them. So it's kind of like a win-win. Either they're going to produce miraculous results or they're going to uncover and unearth what messes with them. And then I can dismantle that with them and create a strategy or a system to shift back over to the world of being unmessable with.
You know what else is really interesting about you? Like,
No, what?
You mentioned that the art of your business, you started about 2 or 3 years ago, pre-podcast. That's what you told me. I think the interesting part is that you spent majority of your career just coaching, working on the art of coaching, like focusing on getting really, really, really good and starting a business versus like starting a business ASAP. You know, I find that really interesting about yourself.
Yeah, well, I started a business 28 years ago to manage the careers of actors. So when I got the record deal, after I retired from being a pop star, I went to have kids and stuff. I was like, well, I really do want to make people's dreams come true. In the entertainment industry, let me start there because all my friends were actors or artists. So I started a company to do that as a manager. And I still have that company and I still manage the careers of about 60 to 80 actors. I don't have a lot to do with that company anymore. I have people that run it for me, but I oversee it all. So I immediately started a company to fulfill people's dreams. And I did career coaching, different though than transformative coaching. And I really am committed to, I am doing my art as my career, oddly enough, right? And my art is coaching. It's like now I get to really fulfill on the 47 years of training that I have had. And when you think about that, it's kind of staggering. 47 years engaged in mastering a language, right? And now I'm creating my own language with it. I create my own methodology. And I've always designed curriculum and I designed courses for Landmark way back when. So when I retired from Landmark, I gave myself 3 months to do nothing and see what emerged. And what emerged was the foundation for being unmessable with. I designed that course. I was like, I'm a course designer. That's what I do. I'm going to design that course and fulfill on that. So my whole business got created out of that, really out of nothing. And then what emerged.
The beauty of space sometimes too, like sometimes we like to, like, at least for me, sometimes I tend to jam pack everything, but having that space is where the magic usually happens.
Yeah. You can't create from something. You got to create from nothing. And there's not enough nothing in people's lives.
I do want to play a game with you if you're open for it.
Sure.
This is surrounded around business investments because a lot of coaches, they invest into coaching. Like you mentioned earlier, you invest into coaching and all that. People invest into team members and all that. The game I want to play is really great for getting stories out of people. It's called First, Last, Best, Worst. I learned it from this storyteller, Matthew Dix, and he won like the Moth storytelling contest or something like that. I'm going to prompt you a phrase and I would just love to hear the first thing that comes to mind. Okay. First business investment you remember.
First business in my lemonade stand.
Ooh, how old?
Oh yeah, I was 5. It was actually Kool-Aid back then. And I went into Central Park with a pitcher of Kool-Aid and little plastic Dixie cup. And this is when, like over 50 years ago when people would let their 5-year-olds walk around by themselves. And I lived in New York City and I went into Central Park and I came back with like $100. And my parents were like, what did you do? Like, what did you charge people? And I remember I said, whatever you think is fair for the cup. And people would just give me like all this money for the Kool-Aid, so people were really drinking the Kool-Aid. Let's put it that way.
That's such a great answer too. That's pretty funny. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. Last business investment you made.
The last business investment I made was in a new video editor social media company to edit my content. So that was recent and we just started rolling out that content. So that was in June, I guess, July. I mean, that's not really true because I invest every week in my team and all that, but that was the last new business investment.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. You're really doubling down on content. I love it. Best business investment.
My team, no question. The people that work with me are gold.
Just kind of curious, who is on your team right now? Like, it seems like you have quite a substantial amount of people.
No, I have a marketing advisor. I have the content specialist. I have my, executive assistant. My husband is my COO. I have my coach. I have my financial coach. I have, like that kind of the team. I have a trainer, so because physically you need to, especially coaching on Zoom most of the day, it's very sedentary. so you need to take care of your body and make sure that you're not just becoming Jabba the Hutt sitting at a table. So yeah, my personal trainer, that is a very good investment for me, for sure, for my well-being. You can never invest too much in your well-being and your development, because that's your body, mind, and spirit. And if you don't have that, I don't know what you're going to do.
Well, especially with coaching, it's just so intimate too, and it's an energy exchange. And if you're like coming with exhausted, drained, I can only imagine how the coaching sessions would.
Oh my God, that would be horrible. Yeah, horrible.
And then worst investment that you kind of wish you got your money back from?
It was I'm not going to say the name of the company, but it was also having to do with YouTube. Not also, but it had to do with YouTube and growing the YouTube thing and the thumbnails and all this stuff. But it was just, I could still maybe get my money back actually, but I haven't pursued it. I'm sort of like of the ilk, if I pay somebody and they do what, they do their services, even if it's not a good match, I don't want to try and get money back from them. But they did have some sort of a money back guarantee, which maybe I should go pursue. I felt like that didn't really, and maybe we didn't do it the way it was designed, but it didn't deliver what was expected.
As you're reflecting on kind of these like investments, I guess like I'm kind of curious, how has your decision-making process and what to invest in changed over the years, if at all?
I think in my early days of not just in the coaching business, but just in business, I had a thinking that it's like try and spend as little as possible and get as much possible. I think that's like beginner's mind thinking, and that has completely altered for me. I am in a different mindset now when it comes to not only money and spending money, but also like what I'm willing to invest in and what's the return. So I look at the ROI a lot more than I used to. It used to just be like, just don't spend, like whatever you need to do not to spend, barter, do whatever you need. At some point that's really not smart business strategy. I don't do really much bartering, and if I do, I try and have some exchange of money so that everybody's got skin in the game, because I find the bartering stuff if I'm going to give somebody a gift of one of my workshops, fine, that's a gift. But to expect something back from them for nothing, I don't do that. It's not worth it.
I'd agree. And money is like, honestly, I think it's a magical thing where it's like also energy exchange. It's just stored energy exchange, right? And so, yeah. Also, what's really interesting, like what I'm taking from your answers before is like, you see the world a bit differently. To have like, what do you say, 5-year-olds at the lemonade stand? Like, oh yeah. Like, whatever, like you
well,
feel
I
like
couldn't be a singer apparently, so I figured I'd go into business right there.
That's a crafty 5-year-old right there, man. Right in Central Park.
I was very resourceful. And I was always raising money for charities. I mean, I was raising money for the Hunger Project since I was 12 years old. And I was, writing songs and entering contest. I mean, like I never wanted to ask my father for money because I had this like relationship with my dad. Not anymore. Now he's in all my group coaching programs. It's amazing, right? He's 92. But there was a time where I was afraid to ask for even $20, because I was afraid he was going to like yell at me or I don't know, whatever it was, how people are afraid to ask for money. I am not afraid to ask for money anymore. I had a huge breakthrough with that in my early 20s. And I just started asking people for money. So I've raised like $90 million for charity since my early 20s because I just asked. And the worst thing that can happen is somebody says, no, big deal. It doesn't mean anything. People get so weirded out by making requests because they're afraid somebody's going to say no, or worse, they're going to say yes. And then what? And, people are just weird about making requests. So I train people in that in my program, in how to de-weirdify yourself around making requests. And if you don't have money, it's because you suck at asking for it. I'm clear. But if you don't have what you want, forget about money. So as I was saying, if you don't have what you want in your life, it's likely because you're not good at asking for things. And that's one of the biggest muscles that people who want to be effective and successful and fulfill on their dreams need to get worked on, is making requests. So promising and requests are two things that create a future that wasn't going to happen anyway. And getting masterful with both of them would be useful. So yeah, raising money is the same thing as charging money, is the same thing as, getting investments in your company. It's making requests.
This is my last question to you, and I love your insight on this because you clearly kind of got over the money thing. I noticed that money is a very taboo subject, like in modern day society, business. The reason why I asked the pricing strategies the way I do is because people feel weird about money. Why do you feel like that is?
Well, we're not really educated about money for the most part. Getting a financial education is like, it's not really in school. So we don't talk about money. Our parents don't talk about money with us mostly. So it seems like it's not something you're supposed to talk about. I talk about money all the time with my clients because my job is that they minimally double their revenue. So we're always going over numbers and da-da. And I found for myself, just in my own personal life and developing my own wealth strategy and all of that, you have to be able to talk about something, including, your weight. If you're like weird about how much you weigh, how are you going to reduce it? You can't deal with anything in reality without being powerfully related to that thing in reality. And most people have a mindset about money that is either scarcity, it doesn't matter how much money they have. It's their relationship money that messes with them. That's why I have that From Fear to Freedom freebie on my website about money with Robin Quivers and Tyrone Jackson, because it's a mindset. He teaches stock trading, but it isn't about stock trading. It's your mindset about money that messes with you. So I've worked with people that don't have a lot of money. I've worked with people that have tons of money. And regardless, if their mindset is scarcity, then that is going to be in the world of being messable with and reactive rather than creative, rather than, well, how am I going to create what I want to create? So, okay, my daughter's getting married. How am I going to create the money to pay for that wedding? I mean, not like, well, we only have this much, or this is your budget. It's like, what is my vision for this wedding and how am I going to fill on that?
Yeah, it's really amazing too, because I've been fortunate to meet like really high net worth individuals. And sometimes these people still have a lot of money, but sometimes I see people stuck in their own prison because of their scarcity mindset. They're like penny pinching. They're scared that they're going to lose it all. And it's very, very real. So I'm glad what you brought up about the money mindset as well. Like, I think it's really, really important.
It is important. And it's funny because I remember when I was beginning trading and Robin and I were talking about this money, that money, and she, we were making money in the stock market like every week or every day. And then I was sick and my husband called me and he's like, well, what do you need? What can I bring you? I said, I really want some matzo ball soup. It's like their comfort food. He's like, okay. So he goes to Katz's Deli and it's like $25 for a matzo ball soup, right? So he buys two. Now he comes home and I see the ticket, $50 for two soups. I was like, are you insane? $50 for soup? And Robin was like, Josselyne, we just talked about how much money we made in the market today. You're worried about $50 for soup? And I was like, oh yeah. So every once in a while, it's like meeks out, that old constraint.
It's so true. Like right now I'm in Vietnam and everything's pretty cheap here. Like just for context, kind of like a Uber ride here is like $1 or something. But sometimes when there's a surge and it's like $1.50, I notice my mindset being like, oh my God, but then I'm like, dude, Kevin, it's like 50 cents. Like, why are you stressing?
I know. It's like even I keep track because I'm in Paris right now. So I keep tracking the euro to the dollar and I'm like, it's $1.18 now. And I should have bought some when it was $1.16. And my husband like, it's 2 cents. It's a 2 cent difference, Josselyne. Like, really? I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's right.
Well, thank you for
Gotta catch yourself. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, Josselyne, how do people find you and connect with you?
BeUnmessablewith.com is the website, and you can find the freebie page or the work with me page, or you can subscribe to the podcast Be Unmessable With on all your podcast things, or Instagram Be Unmessable With. So pretty much Be Unmessable With.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Like, you shared so much. I'm taking away so much, like everything from the 5-year-old lemonade story to the money mindset to just like inserting more space into my life to let the magic happen. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.